Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our first installment of the Breastfeeding Friendly Childcare Learning Bursts. We're really excited to be here today, and my name is Maria Hitt. I'm with the Orange County Partnership for Young Children, and I'm joined today by Natasha Bowden and Jessica Bridgman, who I'll let introduce themselves. Getting there. Natasha?
Hi, my name is Natasha Bowden. I'm the SHAPE specialist and the breastfeeding consultant for Buncombe County. And we have decided to create this childcare webinar in 10 steps. So you will be following along with us for an entire 10 months. And every month there's a 1-hour webinar. And today we're going to go over all the different 10 steps. Jessica?
Hi, my name is Jessica Bridgman. I'm at the Carolina Global Breastfeeding Institute, which is located at UNC Chapel Hill, Gilling School of Global Public Health. I'm excited to be here today and work with each of you to share and explore breastfeeding-friendly childcare.
Thanks, Jessica. I just want to review our objectives for today. We're hoping that after you attend this presentation, you'll be able to identify what the basic concepts are for breastfeeding friendly childcare and the resources that are available to you to achieve that. We want you to understand the role of the childcare workforce in supporting breastfeeding friendly childcare. You play a very important role in helping women to continue to breastfeed as they return to work. And finally, we want you to understand how breastfeeding friendly childcare can benefit your center in terms of marketing your program, because women are looking for centers that are breastfeeding friendly. So we'll be talking about all of these things and probably a few things more. Natasha's going to talk about benefits.
And today we're talking about how breastfeeding can benefit your center in multiple ways. So when you're talking about what can becoming breastfeeding friendly do for me, when we were doing the designation years ago and began what this would look like, it was based on a 2-hour training with your staff and a TA supporting you to support parents. Now we've also realized that it also helps you retain your employees. A lot of your staff will become pregnant and have babies and would like to be supported in their breastfeeding journey. And when you support your breastfeeding parents, you are also supporting all the staff to have loyalty to you and to come back after they have had their babies to feel supported. And another piece of this is giving them time on the clock if you can, and giving them the opportunity to feel that they can pump on the clock and have breaks to go see their baby if their baby is in the childcare where they're working. These really create a system of family in your childcare center. The other side of this is also having tools like this that you can give to prospective parents to help them find support with their employers. Because a lot of times employers just haven't thought about how they will work with you or your staff as a breastfeeding parent on the clock. And so helping them think through this. So this tool is super helpful in this particular piece on how to support them and how to make space and time that feels good to everyone.
So now we're going to watch a short video. This is something that we are encouraging everyone to really embrace this idea of achieving health equity in every community and doing that through breastfeeding for all the families everywhere in the community.
Is there a place where everyone, regardless of race, economic background, or gender, grows up with the opportunity for good health, a good education, and a good job? This place is not in our heads, but in our hands. It starts with a mother and a baby. Actually, it can start with all of us. It can start with you. When you support a woman's health long before she chooses to have a baby, and when she gets pregnant, you help her receive excellent prenatal care close to her home, where you explain why breastfeeding matters in a manner and language she understands. Before she gives birth, in a baby-friendly hospital you helped establish, where you help her breastfeed her baby right away, allowing her to bond with her baby, who breastfeeds well, and you're always there to help. When this mom and baby go home, you help them some more, and her friends and family do too. And she breastfeeds her baby for at least 6 months and gets to stay home and care for her baby. And her partner gets time too, because they have paid family leave, thanks to your efforts that made it the law. And when she returns to work, her boss encourages her to take breaks, to pump in a clean space required by the law you helped pass. And there's childcare right there, where people understand why breastfeeding matters, because you led the way. On the weekends, her family shops at a local green market you helped set up, where they buy good food that is local, healthy, and affordable, that helps her child run, play, learn, and grow up in a safe community with clean air and good water. Until one day, many years from now, she gets her own job with good parental leave and has her own child and breastfeeds her. It takes every one of us to create a culture where breastfeeding is the norm and help a community become healthy right from the start. Beginning with one mother and one baby, we can help achieve health equity everywhere. Each and every one of us can make it possible.
And now Jessica's going to review the 10 steps of breastfeeding friendly childcare.
Thank you, Maria. And also, I did put a link to the video in the chat if anyone would like to view that again or share it with their partners. So today's session will be an introduction to the 10 steps of breastfeeding friendly childcare. So the 10 steps, they provide a framework for childcare programs to meet breastfeeding friendly best practices. The Carolina Global Breastfeeding Institute, it's based at Gillings School of Global Public Health, developed the 10 steps. And these 10 steps incorporate evidence-based practice and are the foundation of the work that we do to implement breastfeeding support in early care and education. So the 10 steps, if they're new to you, if you're not familiar, and even if you are, the 10 steps describe how childcare programs can provide optimal support for breastfeeding families and program staff. They list specific actions to support each of the steps. And it's important to note that the 10 steps can be achieved in any childcare center or family childcare home. The journey and logistics will indeed vary between those two types of programs, but no matter the size nor enrollment, the steps are achievable and applicable. And upcoming sessions in this series will go into greater detail about each of the 10 steps and the components to meet the steps. The resources and additional training opportunities will also be discussed.
Thanks, Jessica. Sorry about my little. Okay, so policy is the very first step. We've got a whole session on writing policy because it's so important. And we feel that having a written policy really reflects your program's promotion and support of breastfeeding. So the policy itself needs to include how you feel, how you run your program, and what you are including that is related to supporting breastfeeding. And we want to emphasize exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months if possible. We want to share this policy with your employees and families so that everyone is on the same page. It just really ensures that your staff and families have a common understanding of what your program's commitment is to breastfeeding. So again, it needs to be not only in writing, it needs to be updated if necessary from time to time, and it needs to be shared and communicated to staff, families, and any potential families that may be joining your center so that everyone knows how you're feeling about supporting breastfeeding, what your policies are. Also, to be included sometimes in your staff evaluations. We're going to talk about training in this session and the importance of that. And the policy it is supporting all of your program activities. And so we really want to see this as the very first step. So you really thought about it when you've written your policy so that you know what you want to include in that. And Natasha's going to talk about training.
Policy, it also, we're going to on I think it's number 10 that we just did. That's going to go step by step through policy. And part of policy is including what you're going to do for your training, for your staff on a regular basis. So most of the time with breastfeeding friendly, most of the time trainings may be one and done. But at this point with breastfeeding friendly, because it changes and your employees change and your parents change and there's so much turnover in staff, it is super important to remember that training needs to be considered a ongoing process, especially with orienting your new staff and making sure that your infant toddler classrooms are up to date on what is age appropriate, how to handle milk, how to store it, what is hunger cues, the risks and benefits of different feeding options, and also trying to support and protect breastfeeding. It's very important for new staff to understand what your environment is promoting and what your environment is welcoming. And we encourage that you welcome and support all feeding options. And one of those is breastfeeding. So when you train your new staff, having them come in and know what your center is supporting is super important. And having a 1 hour training every year is part of the basic process of the designation. But at this point, it might also be a good idea to include it into your staff meetings, and you can do 20 minutes. You can do these hour-long sessions. You can have your TA do a in-service really quickly. It just really helps to have the entire staff understand what their role is in supporting breastfeeding. To the next slide, which I think is also me. Yes. So one of the pieces about the policy and training itself is so that when you're supporting your families, you also understand that part of the support is to inform families about the importance of breastfeeding. You're not encouraging breastfeeding. You're not asking people to breastfeed. You're supporting breastfeeding. And what that means is that when a mom comes in to breastfeed, you have a welcoming environment and your teachers are welcoming as well. And part of that is having a written policy that your teachers understand, but also that your parents understand, like, yes, they can come in and breastfeed after work and before they get on the road. Yes, they can understand what their different options are, and they understand that there's culturally appropriate materials that are being put up onto the childcare walls so that everyone feels welcome. And this includes educational materials, like what do they do if they have breastfeeding challenges? Is there opportunities for help? And so having information available is super important for the success of supporting breastfeeding.
I want to talk about step 4, which is providing learning and play opportunities that normalize breastfeeding for children. So there's a lot of different ways this can happen, but you see a couple of examples on the screen here of, for example, a book, We Like to Nurse Too. And there's one called We Like to Nurse, and there's just other books that include breastfeeding, both in animals and in humans, and just talking with children about the fact that all mammals feed their babies milk, and that you can have toys like you see illustrated here, where the little animals are able to latch on to the mom's body there. There's a little Velcro there, and there's a bunch of these now. I even saw the other day hedgehogs, which are so cute. So you can order these online, and just having baby dolls, for example, in your classrooms that don't have a little hole in their mouth for a bottle to be stuck into, but rather maybe I've seen children able to have like a sling where they can wear the baby around them. They can put a baby doll around them like they've seen their mom to do or other moms to do, and just encouraging children to really do dramatic play and have toys that normalize breastfeeding so that they don't always just see bottle feeding going on around them. And also taking this across the age range as well. So we see these toys in the older classrooms, even classrooms that aren't have breastfeeding children in them, but that preschoolers are also being allowed to play with these types of toys and see examples of all different kinds of feeding.
And we will have a hour-long training on step number 4 that is wonderful, that will have Kathleen Anderson and Shauna Daniels talking about how to support, and lots of examples and a great resource with a kit.
So I'm going to talk about step 5 now. So step 5 is to ensure enrolled families are able to store and label human milk for childcare. So programs there are several things that you all can do. Provide enough refrigerator and freezer space to meet the storage need demands for human milk at your program. So this would be done at a frequency that you feel is appropriate for your program. As we know, new children are enrolling at different points in the year. So just doing an assessment over time and to figure out what you need to do to meet those needs. Telling families how human milk will be handled and stored at your program. So this is some information that often families are not hearing until they're seeking out licensed childcare programs. So just making sure that they have the accurate handling and storage information is very important because it does differ than home storage. Giving those same families information on how to store and label the human milk for your program. So knowing what your expectations and what the licensing rules require, especially upon arrival at your program. So you're telling families what you'll be doing, informing them of what they should be doing, and then you're working together to achieve that routine, and that same outcome every day. So this will also make it easier to monitor and avoid any container mix-ups. And we all want to make the breastfeeding journey and breastfeeding support role easier. And we do have some resources that I will put into the chat for the storage guidelines.
Thanks, Jessica. And we have, as she said, a lot more about this when we have a session on storing milk and infant feeding and that type of thing. I think it's session number 4.
And step 6. So now we're moving on, just giving, again, an overview of the 10 steps. So step 6 is providing a breastfeeding friendly environment. And so why are we doing this? So creating a culture throughout your program, like we've talked about in other steps today, that welcomes breastfeeding, will normalize breastfeeding, and then it will also transparently convey messages of support and protection of families' choice to breastfeed and provide human milk. Breastfeeding Friendly Childcare Program enables breastfeeding everywhere and anywhere, which aligns with families' comfort level, meaning a choice to feed in a private space or in a classroom. This type of environment is one in which posters can be displayed, and those information materials that we've already shared today are being distributed. Permitting breastfeeding in any space and providing a private, comfortable space are required through North Carolina licensing rules and North Carolina law. And we'll talk about that more in some future sessions.
So step number 7, really, when you're looking at breastfeeding employees as an opportunity to create connections with your staff that are ongoing, this is a great place to start. It's also a great place to market because most of your employees are going to be younger women. That's not always the case, but most of the time. And these women are generally going to have a lot more opportunities to accept this opportunity to breastfeed in their space. And they really appreciate this. When you offer breastfeeding time or pumping time, then the employee does not have as much stress of trying to figure out where this goes. And if you think about this in advance, you can put in place policies and set up for when you have a breastfeeding parent, or excuse me, staff member that would be in your infant toddler room. You can allow for breaks and having staffing that can take into this time, because a lot of times whenever, especially with staff shortage at this point, we're looking at limited staff numbers. And so having the option to be able to have a rotation where a parent is, or a mom in a childcare center is able to come in and breastfeed the baby, then a staff member can come in and pump in this breastfeeding lactation space. This is super helpful for employees that are there, that they can actually take time and on the clock and pump. So just providing this opportunity to have a clean, comfortable space that is private and that is in your childcare center that's very close is a gift that you can give your employees. And when you market this, employees are looking for this as an opportunity to be part of your employee base. All right. So one of the other pieces of this is ensuring that you have an infant feeding plan that supports best feeding practices. So what we've seen with DCDE is that they have accepted the feeding plan that CBGI created years ago, which is a infant feeding plan that connects the parent with the infant toddler teacher. So you can speak about what you would like to see for your infant in feeding options, and the teacher can also speak to you about what you would like and what they would like with the feeding options. So most centers do not start solids until 6 months, which is a wonderful, that is part of licensing and best practice. And being on the same page as what your parent is on is going to help you to create a plan that is accessible. It's easy to update. It's part of a standard form that you all can be on the same page with. And so looking at this feeding plan, is there an example on the next slide that we can talk about? I'm not sure if we put an example up, but if not, we'll put a link, and then Jessica put a link in the chat. And this infant feeding plan is interactive all the way through the entire 15 months of a feeding plan. Being part of what you work with a parent with is for 15 months. And so this feeding plan can be updated every 3 months with the parent.
The next thing we want to talk to you about is how you can help connect families and staff with community breastfeeding support resources, and that you play a role as well in helping refer moms and families to breastfeeding resources within their community. So this could be putting together a list of resources that you have looked online to find, and compiling those into a single document or onto a web page that families can access. You may be part of a breastfeeding friendly community. Families may be referred to La Leche League in your community. You might know about breastfeeding classes that are available through your hospital or through a women's center. There might be lactation consultants, which could be extremely helpful for breastfeeding moms. Any kind of resources you can find in your community. The local WIC program is very helpful for new moms, particularly our lower resource moms who may need assistance with their own food and their other children in the family. So there's lots and lots of resources that are available, and put together a listing that you can share with families, so that when a mom comes to you with an issue, you might be able to help her find the support that she needs. And it's also helpful to track some of those community referrals that you make. If mom comes to you and says, wow, I'm really having trouble and I could use a lactation consultant or something like that, follow up with that mom in a week or so and say, were you able to get in touch with that person that I recommended for you? Or were you able to find someone to help you in case she couldn't? And then maybe you can offer her another suggestion. Now, step 10, the last step, but not the least, is to make sure that all your staff are trained annually. And Natasha mentioned this earlier, but we want to be sure that pretty much everybody across the board has a concept about what do we mean by supporting breastfeeding in our program, so that when a parent is trying to breastfeed, that they don't, even if it's not in the infant classroom, maybe a teacher or an assistant in another class might be shocked or offended or something like that. So we need to be sure that everybody across the board in the center is really aware of what we support, aware of being welcoming to breastfeeding moms and families. So this means you have up-to-date materials that are on hand, that have information on breastfeeding and human milk feeding, like we were talking about earlier, how to store it, et cetera, that each member of your staff is receiving at least an hour a year of continuing ed on human milk feeding and breastfeeding support. And there are some more specific rules around that. I think all of the infant and toddler teachers need to be trained, and then at least one teacher in the older classrooms and the director are supposed to receive this training, but the more the better. And then the resource list, which I mentioned a minute ago, that's something that all of your staff should know about, or at least know where to put their hand on it if someone asks them for help about this issue or is looking for a lactation consultant, et cetera, that you know who to send people to answer their questions. And there's a lot of resources available. The Carolina Global Breastfeeding Institute has a breastfeeding university on their website that includes 4 30-minute modules that anyone can enroll in for free. You just have to register on the website. And we'll be including that link in a list of links that we have with this session. There is the breastfeeding friendly childcare training that can be offered by your local technical assistant. There are childcare health consultants that can help you sometimes with training. And Natasha, I think you had some other ideas about places to refer folks. We know there's training available via Knapsack. We're not 100% sure that it meets all the requirements necessary for the breastfeeding friendly childcare designation at the state level, but they are very helpful 30-minute modules that are available if you are plugged into the Knapsack system. That are a great way, as Natasha was talking earlier, about doing a short presentation at a staff meeting, 20-30 minutes, where you could watch the video together and talk about the content of it. Things like this are going to be super helpful in terms of keeping everybody up to speed, because you're constantly having staff turnover. You want to make sure that anybody that's new coming on board is getting the same education and the same information as your longer term staff.
Yeah, and one of the things that we were talking about was train the trainer. So reaching out to your partnership to connect with your technical assistant to make sure that you have a technical assistant in your partnership or in your region that can provide TA to you. Most of the technical assistants have been trained in breastfeeding friendly, so they can do a 1 hour, 2 hour online or in-person breastfeeding friendly training, and they can also help support you in your journey through these 10 steps, which sometimes can take a long time. And this way they can help you write your policies, they can help do your trainings. So do reach out to your local partnership for children.
Last thing we wanted to share is that there are self-assessments available. There is the Go Knapsack self-assessment, and there's also the Carolina Global Breastfeeding Institute breastfeeding self-assessment. And you can see the links here on this slide. These are just going to be forms you can just work your way through, and it will help you to see what steps have you already achieved, which ones do you need to make more progress on, where are you just in terms of your breastfeeding friendly childcare program, what are you meeting and what do you still need to work on? And so it can help you to set an action plan for yourself. You can take a look at that and say, okay, in the next 6 months, what I really want to work on is getting my policy written and getting that, down on paper so everybody can see how we're feeling about it. Or maybe you really want to make sure that all your staff understand how to, safely and properly store that breast milk and get that information out to all the families if that isn't something that you've been working on already. So you can just work through these self-assessments and select your own goals, where you want to start. As Natasha said, work with your technical assistant, reach out to your local partnership for children or your local childcare health consultant, find someone that's familiar with these 10 steps that can really help you with finding training, finding resources, working on your policy, all of the things. And then at some point, hopefully you will apply for your 10-step designation, which we will have modules about that as well. Natasha, did you want to add anything about self-assessment at this point, or did I cover?
Well, maybe Jessica does. I know that
Jessica.
for me, the assessment, when you are working, if you'll start with the assessment, you will be able to figure out real quickly where you would like to work and have a focus point. So I always recommend starting with an assessment first, because you know your own center, but working with a TA and the assessment is invaluable.
Mhm. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. And then the best part of doing, taking that approach that Natasha just shared is that you can develop an action plan that will put you on a path to success. And having that action plan where you can tweak it or have an off ramp or something like that to really ensure that you're implementing these successfully, you'll feel those benefits, and then so will your program and your program staff, your families and your program staff. So I just wanted to emphasize that the self-assessment and then the action plan. CGBI does have an action plan template that you can work with your TA on as well. And then the last thing I wanted to add around self-assessment is the importance of revisiting self-assessment over time. So kind of getting at that quality improvement, which I know that you all are already familiar with, but thinking about quality improvement in terms of your breastfeeding friendly childcare as well. So I know you're working towards quality and so many other aspects of your quality childcare program, but that also includes the breastfeeding friendly.
Great points, you all. So that really concludes the content of our session today. We really wanted to just provide with an overview of what the 10 steps look like and help you think about where to jump in and what you might want to start on first and get a concept of what some of the components include. So we are a coalition of folks from all around the state that have helped put these Zoom webinars together. And that includes the folks you've seen today. Jessica is with the Global Breastfeeding Institute in Enriched Carolinas. Natasha is with the Buncombe County Partnership for Children. I am with the Orange County Partnership for Children, and we are also collaborating with the North Carolina Partnership for Children, as well as the breastfeeding communities, Breastfeed Durham and Breastfeed Orange and Seed. So lots of folks have come together to make these webinars possible. We're very excited about them, and they will be available in the near future, we hope, for everyone to view on the DCDEE Moodle platform. And this is, as we said, this is just number one. There are 9 sessions total that cover all of these 10 steps. How can there be 9? Maybe there's 10. But there are sessions on all the steps and how to achieve them. And so we wish you the best of luck on your breastfeeding support journey in your childcare program. And don't be afraid to reach out to the folks in your community that can help you to achieve your goals. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, you want to go to the next slide? We'll tell you some, give you a little bit of homework. Alan, what are your next steps? And what is one goal you would set going forward? And we were thinking that having these conversations and then the next session will start on your journey. Thank you all for joining us.